Welcome to this Operoo training video. In this video, we're going to look at creating groups. If you need any help, you can contact the Operoo support team or your dedicated customer success manager or CSM. To contact the Operoo support team, on the bottom right-hand side, there is a live chat. Clicking on this will open up the pop-up box where you can start a conversation. Alternatively, on the top right-hand side under help and clicking support will take you to our website, which outlines all the various ways you can contact our support team. Whilst on help, right at the top, there is a link to our FAQs. This takes you through to the Operoo knowledge base. There are hundreds of articles on the knowledge base on how to complete specific tasks within Operoo. With regards to your dedicated CSM, you should have their contact details already, so please feel free to contact your CSM at any point, and the support team or your CSM will be more than happy to help guide you through this process. Prior to going live in later meetings with your CSM, we will also ensure that your groups are set up as you'd like them to be. So with that being said, let's get on to groups. On the bottom left-hand side of your account, you will see all of your groups. Now, I am not synced into an MIS. My system is a standalone system, but if you are using Operoo as an integrated product, such as Sims, you will have certain groups that have synced through from Sims. For example, your years, registration groups, houses, and potentially curriculum. Any other groups that you'd like to create, you will need to create those within Operoo. When you create groups within Operoo, there are two types of groups that you can create. There is a static or a manual group, or a dynamic group. A dynamic group, examples of a dynamic group could be your pre-admission group to group all of your pre-admission students together, a group showing students with specific medical conditions or any medical condition, a group of students showing any specific dietary requirements, for example, a group showing students who are the eldest within the family, and also, you could create a group showing any specific e-form responses or any payments that have been made if you are using Stripe and using the payment functionality within Operoo. Examples of manual or static groups could be specific trips, students who are attending a before school club, attending an after school club, or any extracurricular activities. When you come to create groups, down here on the bottom left-hand side, you would click add and then add group. So for today, I'm going to create a couple of dynamic groups and a few static groups or manual groups to show you how to do that. So clicking add group, the first group I'm going to create is my dynamic group, which will be my pre-admission group. Once this screen opens, the first thing you should do is put in a group name. This is a free text field, so put in here whatever makes sense to you. I'm going to put in pre-admissions 2022-2023. The next one down is my parent. This asks me where my group is going to be located. For now, I'm going to leave my pre-admission group underneath my high-level Walsh Primary School. In a later group that I create, I'm going to nestle that and I'll show you how that looks. The next setting down is display staff contact details to other staff members. What this means, with any group, you can assign staff who are not administrators access to this group or a group that you create. When staff have access to that group, they will have access to the students within that group. They will have access to the students' medical and dietary information if you are collecting that as part of the student profile, and they will also have access to the student contact emergency information if you choose to show that information as part of the profile. On top of that, the staff members will also see each other's contact details. Now that could be email and or mobile phone that may have synced through from your MIS. If you do not want to show each staff member's contact details, just unselect this and staff members will just be the names of those other staff members who have been assigned access to this group. Further down, this is where we have the member selection. So your static members, which is your manual group, or your dynamic members, which is your dynamic group. So with dynamic members, the group association automatically updates based on the criteria that you have set when you're setting up that group. So that's the one I'm going to first create. So simply clicking on dynamic members and then choose filter. This then opens up into a pop-up box. This is where I need to set my criteria for that dynamic membership of that group. For my pre-admission group, I'm going to select Walsh Primary School on the top left-hand side. This will show my 13 students. Under additional attributes, I'm going to expand integrated and select pre-enrolled. and I have 5 pre-enrolled students within my school. Now, if you are using Operoo and integrating it with Sims, when we sync over your pre-enrolled students from Sims, we give them an automatic smart tag of pre-enrolled. So that's how we know which of your students are pre-enrolled. If you are adding your students manually via Operoo, you can choose at that point when you add them to give them a pre-enrolled or an enrolled status. Coming down, clicking confirm, I'm then asked to choose a color. If you don't choose a specific color, it will default to this blue on the top left-hand side. And finally, track membership changes. What this is, it's an internal audit log, or an audit log of this group, I should say. So you'll be able to see when students were associated and added to this group, and you'll be able to see when students were removed from this group. So it's up to you whether you choose to leave that on or not. Best practice, I personally would always leave it on. It gives you some additional information should you need to reference it in the future. Once you've made those changes and made those settings and selections, coming in and clicking save, and then clicking OK. That has then created my pre-admission group, and I've got my 5 pre-admission students, and it's defaulted to that group. So that is how you would create your pre-admission group. Now, with your pre-admission students, they will also be part of your all members, so your Walsh Primary School, but by doing it this way, it's easy for you to identify those students. The other group that you may choose to create in your pre-admissions, if you are a school where you have multi-year admission groups, so for example, you're a primary school and you have nursery and reception, or you're a secondary school and you have year 7 and year 12, what you can do is you can create subgroups under your pre-admission group. Now, they would be manual groups. So with a manual group, you need to manually add and remove students from that group. So that's what I'd like to do now. I'd like to show you how to create that. And within that, I'm going to show you how to nestle groups. So coming into add and then add group again. This one I'm going to do as nursery. My parent, this is where I would choose how I'm going to nestle that group. So clicking on that, I'm going to come down to my pre-admission group. There it is. I'm going to leave it as static members. I'm not going to keep that selected. I'll leave the color exactly where it is, and I'll keep track membership changes and clicking save. It has created that nursery group, but you'll notice on the left-hand side that it's nestled underneath my pre-admission group. So I can expand or collapse that as I choose to. As this is a manual group, you can see right at the top that I have 0 of 0 students. So I need to add students into that group. To do so, with this one, all I'm going to do is click on my pre-admissions group. I'm going to select the students who are my nursery students. All I'm doing is clicking on their photo. You don't have to hold your mouse down. You can just click away and then drag your students. And you notice I have a green tick. This means I can drop these students into this nursery group. Letting go of my mouse and clicking proceed. If I now click into my nursery group, I now have my 3 nursery students. Now, as it is a manual group, I also need to manually remove those students if I need to do so. To remove students, click on your student. If it's all of them, you can click actions and select displayed students. And then once you've selected one student or multiple students, clicking back into your actions and remove selected students from this group. I'm being asked a prompt, are you sure you would like to remove the students from this group? Yes, I am. Clicking remove. And that's left 0 students within my nursery group. So they're the main differences between a dynamic group and a manual group. A dynamic group will automatically populate based on the criteria that you've set. A manual group, you will need to manually add or remove students as required. One of the other examples that I gave you of dynamic group is a group outlining students who have a specific medical condition or a specific dietary requirement. This is a really popular group, or popular groups, I should say, within schools to create. It's a really easy way for you to see that information. If you would like to create either of these groups, they are both dynamic groups. So clicking add group again. For now, I'm going to create a group of students who have asthma. Can't spell asthma, there we go. In my parent, I'm going to create it for my pre-admission students only. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to find that pre-admission group again. Unselect this one. Now this is going to be a dynamic member group. Clicking dynamic members and choosing filter. On the left-hand side, again, I'm going to choose Walsh Primary School. No, I'm not. I'm going to use my pre-admission group because this is my pre-admission students only. So selecting pre-admission 2022-2023. If you did want to create a group of asthma students for your entire school, you would just select your Walsh Primary School instead. Coming down here into my additional attributes, this is where I would find those medical conditions. Now, if you are not familiar with the student record, there is another training video which outlines settings and configurations. Please watch that video. We do go into detail on the student record configuration and how to set that record configuration. Again, you can also contact the support team or you can reach out to your CSM. In that student record though, when I expand that, I'm then given a few options. I'm going to create a group of students who have asthma. So I'm going to expand medical data, and then down here, I can either expand conditions, scroll down and find asthma, and select asthma. At this point, I have no members who have asthma. The other way that you can do it, I'll just collapse these so I can show you. If I type in asthma here, it will then show me all of the asthma things, and I can just select asthma, coming down, clicking confirm, choosing a specific color, and then clicking save. And what makes that group, that asthma group, a dynamic group is when the parent then specifies that their child has asthma. As soon as that parent clicks save to the condition and adds all the information for that asthma condition, that student will automatically pre-populate into my asthma group because I have it linked to the student profile itself. If you wanted to create a group of dynamic group for dietary requirements, for example, you would do the same thing, except medical conditions, you would expand dietary requirements, and then you would choose all of the yeses or a specific yes. When it comes to groups, you can also populate groups from a trigger. Now, again, if you're not familiar with triggers, we did cover triggers in our SIMS pre-admission e-form training video. There is also a knowledge base on triggers. And again, you do have your CSM and the live chat and our support team to reach out to if you need help. With triggers, if you are going to populate a group based on a trigger, you need to create your group first as a manual group. So coming in, add, and then add group. Giving your group a name, test will do for now, leaving it as static members and then clicking save. Then when you go to create your trigger, you would point your trigger to that test group or that specific group that you've already created. And it's the trigger that drives the dynamic element of that group itself. When you come to editing groups and looking at groups, you can do that. If I find my pre-admission group again, and I right click on that group and click manage this group, there's a few options that I can do on the left-hand side. I can upload a group image if I wanted to. I can archive and I can delete a group. Now, it's really important to note here that regardless of whether you archive or you delete a group, the end result is the same thing. You cannot get that group back. It's an irrecoverable action. So if you do archive or delete a group by accident, you will just need to create that group again. You can assign staff to that group. So this was the staff assignment. So you might choose to give, if you were a high school, for example, you might choose to give all the Year 7 staff access to this pre-admission group so they can see the students and all the information within that group itself. You can generate reports for the students within that group. So if I click on generate reports now, these are the reports that show. So I'm not going to click on all of the reports now, but there are these reports that you can generate for the pre-admission students specifically because this is a pre-admission group. You can have a look at roll call reports. So within Operoo, you can create roll calls. They're mainly used by schools for trips, after school clubs and so forth, but you can create as many roll calls per group as you need to, and then an administrator can run and export all of those roll calls if required. These ones here, drag and drop membership changes all the way down to group changes, show you an audit log of specific things. So group changes would show you how many times that group has been changed, color, membership, and so forth. And lastly, right down the bottom, you can send messages from here. So clicking into send message, it will show me the students, it will show me the contacts of those students. All I would do is I would just select how I'm choosing to communicate with those parents and carers, either via SMS, email, or push notification. I would complete the relevant fields that I need to complete and then send that message. If you are synced into an MIS, for example, if you click use filters, you will have a few other options here, P1, P2, and so forth. I'm not synced in, so I don't have those options, but in your account, you most likely will. If you would like to know more about messaging, there is another video which goes through messaging and news articles and all those ways, other ways that you can communicate with your parents and carers. So that's it for our groups and smart groups training session. Remembering, if you do choose to archive or delete a group on the left-hand side, just really important to remember that they are permanent actions and you can't undo that. So you will need to create those groups again. I'm just going to cancel here just to take me back to the student homepage. If you do have any questions at all regarding your groups, whether that be a dynamic group or a static or a manual group, please let the support team know. Reach out to your customer success manager, or you do have those knowledge base articles up on the top on the right hand side under help and FAQs. Also, if you haven't watched them as yet and you wanted to learn more about your settings and configurations or the SIMS pre-admission form, you can also watch those videos just to give you some more information about that functionality of the system. Thank you very much for your time.